Hey, Susan Ragsdale with Right Creations Group. I am here today to talk with Samantha Bryant, and we are going. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a second, but we're going to continue a conversation around one of my favorite topics, which is sparks. Sparks and purpose are one of the underlying guidelines for my partner in crime, Ann Saylor, in everything we do. And here's a quote I'm going to share that kind of captures the feel of what motivates us. Inside each of us, there are powers so strong, treasures so rich, possibilities so endless, that to command them all to action would change the history of the world. And that was H. Jackson Brown Jr., who's author of Life's Little Instruction Book. Don't know how that hits you guys, but for me, that kind of captures what we try to do in all of our trainings and even in some of our books. We love Spark so much, we want people to figure out what jazzes them up and is fulfilling and sustaining, that we've even created activities just around that. One of the ways that I think helps young people or even us as adults figure out our spark is listening to other people's stories. And so that's why I have Samantha here today. So I want Samantha to say who she is, give us her street creds, and even where to find her. And then we're going to dive in and figure out her lovely, sparky little journey.
So, hello, I'm Samantha Bryant. By day, I am a middle school Spanish teacher. On average, I have 120 to 150 kids at any given moment.
Wow.
Yeah. And, at least 100 of them are awesome. Just kidding.
And the others are diamonds in the rough.
Exactly. Yes. And I live in a small town in North Carolina and teach in the same town. That seems to be a little weird around here. But I started my teaching career in Alaska, in a town so small that when I thought I might be pregnant, I had to buy my pregnancy test from one of my students at the supermarket.
Wow.
So I have no expectations of privacy. It's fine. Let's see, how long have I been a teacher? This is 2020, so 25. Oh my gosh, 25 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Whew, now I feel old, but and across my career, I've taught everything from 6th grade to college, a mixture of language arts and Spanish classes for the most part. There was that one year I was the chorus teacher. That was weird. But teaching is like that. Everybody wears what hats the school needs you to wear. And then in my writing life, I've always been a writer. Like starting in 1st grade when Mrs. Osdorf sat down next to my desk while we were copying poems to practice our handwriting and said, if you wanted to, you could write poems. And I was like, woo! So it's Mrs. Osdorf's fault that I write. And I've always written, but I didn't take it seriously and pursue it as any kind of even a bigger hobby, let alone a career path, until I turned 42. And when I turned 42, according to Douglas Adams, is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. If you're familiar with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? And so, everybody has their crisis year birthdays. 30 didn't faze me. 40 didn't faze me. 42, though, I was like, okay, time to get serious or admit that you're not serious. Mm. And so that's when I picked up when I picked up discipline, basically, about my writing. Instead of just writing when I felt like it, when I was inspired, I write every day. And I have at this point, I'm 49, and I have written every day for 7 years.
And I have seen some of those writings on your Facebook posts and stuff, and they're lovely. And you're so well crafted. You describe situations really well. And of course, I've read some of your books, and there's great humor and great insight. So just a small plug there on the side.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the things that I've gotten published are in a book series, the Menopausal Superhero series, which that's a fun one to talk about for sparks. Like why do some ideas really take root with you and become something, and others are like a little fancy that goes by and you just let it go like a butterfly. But the Menopausal Superhero series at this point is 3 novels and 2 novellas with a collection of short stories coming out in August. And I'm contracted for 2 more books, one to come out in 2021 and one to come out in 2022. So it's getting to be big. It's exciting. And of course, that's not the only thing I want to write, but I do write part-time alongside a family life and a teaching life. So I can only produce so fast.
So, let's go. You said first grade is when you realized the possibilities of poetry, and then you jumped to 42 for career. Were there people or events or particular situations you can think of that nurtured that spark, so that between first grade and 42 you knew it was going to happen? Or
Yeah, I think so. My mother gets a whole lot of credit. We didn't have any money when I was a small child. Like, literally we walked everywhere because we didn't own our own transportation, and, but my mom made sure I got lots of books, and we were best friends with the Bookmobile ladies. Those ladies were so awesome. And, and if they found an enthusiastic reader, and they had 2 of them at our house, me and my mom, my little sister didn't exist yet.
yeah.
They would listen to what you wanted. And when the Bookmobile came back, miraculously, those books that you wanted would be on the Bookmobile.
I think there's a story right there. Something sort of like you're wishing for a book and the right book appears. There should be a magical library or something.
Yeah, I'm on the board for my local Friends of the Public Library now. And that's part of why, is because libraries were so essential to me in my youth. And, and I still get a lot of use out of my library, even though now if I want to, mostly I can buy a book, but it's access to so much for no cost. And it's alongside public education, I think one of the most important and quintessentially American ideas our country has ever had. So yeah, my librarians, my mother, other teachers along the way, my friends, because, once I put it out there that I wrote poetry, other kids thought that was kind of cool, and they would ask me to write poems for them. So I was the occasional poet of Grandview Elementary, meaning you could kind of hire me for like candy or something to write a Mother's Day poem for your mom, or to write I have a crush note for you for somebody with some little rhymed verses in it. I had quite a little career going there.
I was going to say, that's quite the entrepreneurial spirit at an early age. Good for you. That's really cool.
And then, I was fortunate across my educational career to have a lot of really engaged teachers who saw my interest in writing and tried to find ways to foster that for me, even if they were not writing teachers. Yeah. Like I can remember a later elementary social studies teacher. Well, I haven't thought about her in too long, so I can't think of her name. But she encouraged me to try some nonfiction essays, for like, there's always contests for kids, like write an essay about an important historical figure and that kind of stuff. And, she really encouraged me to participate in a lot of those things, which is when I found out that research is like superpowered reading, and it's dangerously attractive. It could keep you from doing anything else. Yeah. And then, by the time I got to college, I always took one of my bachelor's degree is this ridiculous thing, because I wanted to do everything, right? So I had a double major of English and education, and I had 3 minors in Spanish, creative writing, and what was called honors. And honors was really like it was almost like another reading degree, but it focused on like knowing the canon, like age of classicism, age of faith, and it really focused on eras. So, I among all of that in the creative writing, I studied mostly poetry, but I also took some of the fiction writing classes. I was still doing poetry as my main medium all the way until my youngest daughter was born, when I was 35. And then I had postpartum depression, and it was not good. But my husband knew me well enough to know that the way to boost a sad Samantha is to get her interested in a problem or something she needs to create. Mm-hmm. And so he pushed me to find a writing group. And I found a writing group that was called Works in Progress, which is a group of writers who all live within an hour or so of where I live. And they would meet, I think they were meeting twice a month at that time. And everybody was working on a novel. And so if I liked them a whole lot, but if I was going to be a part of their group, I had to be working on a novel. So I went from poetry, which generally is less than a page in length, to novels, because, that's a natural leap.
Oh, absolutely.
But I found that I really do like novel writing. And, obviously I've written a few since then, so it must not be all bad.
So yeah, so you've captured, there were people and things all along the way that kept you on the path, and you went into education. So I assume you had some sparks along that way as well. If you're thinking about your students, and one of the things there's some research on sparks from Search Institute. It's thriving research, what helps us thrive, and part of it is realizing that passion and that thing that gets us excited and makes us just, you feel it in your body, you feel alive when you're doing it. And so they've said one of the things that we as adults who love young people can do is help them find it. So again, like that little jar I held up, activities that you just look to see if they sit up straight or light up. And you've seen that in the classroom, when someone gets more excited about something, well, that's coming from something inside of them. So if we can unpack that and figure out what it is so that we see it, we name it, we thank them for having that spark in their life, and then kind of help them figure out how can they help it grow. So have you in your career with young people, or this even, you can have your teacher hat on or your writer hat on or both of them on, what are some ways that you think you could help your young people figure out their spark? Or you can answer the question of, if you see in your students, because you told me you have a creative writing club that you're
I do, yes.
How do you encourage them? If you see that they have a love for writing, what are pointers you would give them so that they can continue the path, just like others modeled it for you, to explore that and see if that really is something that they want to do?
So I think one of the greatest things you can do for a child is to express curiosity about them, to ask a lot of questions, because kids are used to being told to be quiet, being told to listen. And in some circumstances, when I'm trying to teach a whole room how to conjugate regular verbs, I do need them to be still and to listen. But I try not to make that the bulk of my time with students. I know that relationships are twice as important, 3 times as important as the content, because you can get exposure to the content thousands of ways. But the relationship that gives you the spark and the motivation to want to move forward, that makes you feel curious and passionate, that's the part you need a good teacher for. That's how I can be a good teacher, is helping you find it. Mm-hmm. So I'd say my greatest gift in the classroom is that I think the kids are interesting. And I ask them a lot of questions, and I let them tell me about stuff that I don't think is interesting on the surface at first. I let them tell me about their favorite YouTuber, even though actually I come to think of it, now I do have a favorite YouTuber. Once upon a time, I would have said I don't have one, but I do. Yeah, I like Red from Overly Sarcastic Productions. She's my favorite YouTuber. But anyway, yeah, letting them explain the arc of a video game to me, even if I've never played that video game. And in the conversation, you learn a lot about a kid, and then you can share back. You can be like, oh, okay, so it sounds like you're into fantasy settings. Have you ever read this book? I read this book when I was about 12, and it was mind-blowing. I'd like to see if it holds up for 12-year-olds now. What do you think? Because 12-year-olds now are not 12-year-olds in the 70s.
Yep.
Oh, I guess it was in the 80s by the time I was 12. I'm not quite that old.
Yeah, so questions, and that's exactly pairs up with my experience. What I found is asking questions, and what you're doing is that's great. There is you're turning them into the teachers, and they're becoming the experts, the authors of their own lives, the experts of their own opinions, and they're getting to teach and tell you things too. So
And especially at the cusp of adolescence, that's such an important transition to be able to make, because that's part of what makes you an adult, is taking charge of your own destiny. And right when I get these kids, most of my students are between 12 and 14 years old, is right when they're trying to make those first steps, So trying to make them or help them make those first steps in a positive direction is really useful.
So if we expand it beyond young people to maybe there are other educators or youth workers or social workers who are listening to this chat, where would you send them if they're like, I've put writing on hold or on the side and I've always wanted to explore it? What are your couple favorite resources where you would send them to start thinking about taking the next steps, or your advice for?
Well, for me, writing has always been an escape and a solace. So I always start with journal writing. If I am agitated and upset or just trying to figure something out, nothing is better for me than just to write it out. And if I'm writing it as a journal post that I'm not posting anywhere, right? I say journal post because I have arthritis, so I don't write by hand anymore. I write everything on screen, but that doesn't mean I share all of it.
Right.
And I find that there's a quote from E.M. Forster: "How do I know what I think until I see what I say?" And that is a lot of my experience with writing, that writing and narrative is a way of thinking. And by writing it out, I work it out. So, I highly recommend journal writing because it's been so good for me. I also really like prompt writing, where somebody hands you basically like an assignment. Maybe it's that I earn my gold star good student kind of feeling that it appeals to me, but there's something freeing about somebody else deciding what I'm going to write about, and then I get to make it my own. So everybody in a particular group is going to use this one photograph, and they're going to write a story about this photograph. But if there are 10 people in the group, you have 10 completely different stories, even though we all looked at the same photograph.
And I think that's where I saw some of your writing on Facebook is responding to photographs and stuff and just going, wow, that's amazing what she came up with. And that's just a little snippet. And she has a potential for a whole book based on this one little snippet.
Yeah, there's in October, there's one I really love to play with. A woman that I only know online. Her name is Bliss Morgan. Every Halloween, every October, she does a series of prompts called Nightmare Fuel. And so all year she collects creepy, weird little pictures. And then in October, she puts one up every day and challenges you to write something based on it. And I find those wonderfully fun. And, and Halloween's one of my favorite holidays. It may not look that creepy out here, but it's a little creepy in here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I like to keep these kind of short. It was fun to hear your story. And I will remember that you started in first grade with poetry. People paid you to do cards and all of that stuff. That's just a really cool highlight reminder that youth are capable of doing so much. Yeah. And that's one.
You are no less an artist just because you're 6 and being paid in candy.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell people again where to find you if they want to look for your books and check them out.
Okay, so I try to set up my social media to mostly be my name. So I'm Samantha Bryant, and if you Google Samantha Bryant author, you'll find me. If you just put Samantha Bryant, you're going to find an actress who's married to Colin Hanks. That's not me. My website is so creatively samanthabryant.com. There you go, right? And knowing my name is generally enough to find me. And my main books are called the Menopausal Superhero Series. Let's see if I can figure out where to put that so you see it. This is the 3rd novel, Face the Change. My favorite cover out of all of them. Isn't it pretty?
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So if you look up Menopausal Superheroes, I guarantee you'll find me. I am the only person writing those.
And I
think that's enough, right?
And I just finished her 2nd book.
Yay!
Last night, and it's good. One of the things I love about Samantha's writing is that there is humor, the pacing is great, the action is good, but she gets across within this different points of view that represent society today without being browbeating of different points of view and the conflict that we often see. She just suggests and invites for you to look at it, and she adds in humor and warmth, and appreciates everyday life. She does a lovely job of doing that. So that's my take on the second one that I just finished.
Oh, good. What did you think of Cindy's daddy?
Oh my, he's
creepy.
He needs to go. The
I
evil
told you it gets a
villain,
little creepy in here sometimes.
the mad scientist needs to go. Like, subscribe, share. Please share. We're all in the field of trying to help young people grow and be the best versions of ourselves, and the only way we can do that is learning from each other. So share broadly in the comments if you want to put your spark, your passion, or activities that you're using to help young people figure out what's meaningful to them. I would love to hear that feedback. Thank you.